Anxiety in the car is a huge problem for us, and I know it's a huge problem for other people, so I hope you can get some usefulness out of these tips for short rides, road trips, and just how to, slowly introduce them properly. Gathered a bunch of tips together, and that's what we're gonna go over today, so stay tuned. Well, today has been a day. If you guys follow the vlogs, you know what's going on because I told you in the vlog what I'm doing, and that is shooting these anxiety videos because the pups are, well, neither pup is here, as you can see. Enzo is at MedVet right now, waiting to hear back from them. And my mind is gonna go crazy if I don't keep busy. So what better topic than anxiety? Aside from this video, I'm gonna film another video, so I gotta have a drink, and I've got 6 to 8 hours to kill, apparently. All right, so today we are talking about car rides. A lot of times when a pup is scared of something or it makes them anxious, slowly introducing to them to it, it's kind of like an allergy shot kind of thing, like you slowly introduce them to it, and they can overcome that a lot of times. However, that doesn't always work. If you know our videos, you know that, since we got Lotus, we go somewhere every day. So he's in the car every day. There is no getting him slowly used to it. He is used to the car. We're still gonna go places all the time, so I gotta try to figure out ways to make him less anxious. And he kind of goes in waves. I've divided this up into two sections, basically like short trips and longer trips, like road trips. But before we do that, I wanna kind of just cover the basics in general, and that is, if you have a dog that doesn't get in the car all the time, it may be the case that they just need to be introduced to it slowly. The best way to start that would be, you wanna pick a good day, first of all. You don't want it to be like a stormy day or anything like that. A good calm day, you don't want it to be windy or just anything that could bother them. I would just go out, have the windows down and put them in the car and just kind of hang out for a few minutes and then get out. And that's it. I may do that a couple times a day, every day for several weeks or something, just kind of see how they are. Because some dogs, like the minute they see the car, they're like, no. A car, you got to think about it. If you didn't know what a car was and somebody stuck you in one, and next thing you know, you're flying around, there's wind in your face and stuff like that, could be anxious. Also, what often happens is the only time they go in the car is like if we're going to the vet or something. So they're not associating with a positive experience. We need to start off with positive stuff. I would, like I said, start slow. Just get them in the car, give them a couple treats, pat them on the head, good boy, good girl. Let them kind of sniff around for a minute and then get out, and that's it. Give them a few more treats, good boy, good girl. Go inside and move on with your day. Maybe you do that a couple times a day. Maybe if you have like a car in your garage throughout the day, just go out in the garage, open the back door, let them hop up for a minute, give them a treat and get out. Like just make it to where getting in the car at least is like a perfectly happy experience. They should be at the point where they just love getting in the car, because if nothing else, every time I get in the car, I get a treat. So why would I not want to? Give them a treat, get out. Then you start with like little short trips. Depending on how anxious they are, maybe you start by just starting the car. But I would start with just little short trips, put them in there and drive around your block or down the street and back. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And, come home, maybe it's a few minutes and get out, and it's, again, nothing happened. It's a real short trip. They got some treats, they got in the car, nothing happened. And then you can slowly progress up to, then go to the park. So then every time they get in the car, hey, we're either just going on this short little trip, I'm gonna get some snacks, or we end up at the park, or maybe we end up at, Starbucks and I get a pup cup. Make it all quick and positive, and pick good weather days, mind you. Now, depending on how anxious your dog is, you may not have to go as dramatic as, just sitting in the car and turning the car, and you may be able to skip steps. But if they're really anxious, you may not be able to. You may even have to do more steps, like just get them to get near the car and give them a snack. Good boy, okay, now let's go away. And then the next day you try to open the door. Oh, good boy, good girl. And keep breaking it down into as many steps as you need it to be, essentially. Trips should be nothing but positive. It's also, side note, good for vets if they're afraid of going into vets. Every time you're driving by your vet, swing in, just walk in the door, give them a treat, and walk out. Like, help get them used to not always freaking out when they go to the vet, but that's a whole different story. Now that we've kind of gone over just like some introducing him to the car, let's start with short car rides. So some things you can do to make the short car ride better. All right, so let's talk short trips first. The first thing that's worked for us with Lotus is restricting movement. For us, that looks like a seatbelt harness. This is a harness that he wears, a vest, that has a special loop in the back for seatbelts to go through This has been like crash tested and stuff. Now, I mean, cars aren't made for dogs, they're made for humans. So it's not a perfect scenario, but I think it's one of the best without getting into a specific crate, which we'll talk about in a minute, where, you know, this is a crash tested thing. It will withstand that impact and everything. I've seen other ones that are like, you can find these on Amazon for a lot less money. I mean, it's like 70, 80 bucks. I'm all for saving money, but not on safety equipment. Let's not go for the random no-name brand stuff off Amazon. I mean, you can buy this one off Amazon, and I'll link it below, but like, buy the legitimate stuff. Don't mess around with safety equipment. And I wouldn't make any modifications to it whatsoever. I would do it the way it's intended to work. You don't want to be messing with seat belts or safety harnesses and safety equipment. So that has been one of the things, because he can get so anxious to where he just like wants to basically like try to get on your lap almost. Like he wants to be as close to you as possible. And that's not good when you're driving, obviously. So restricting their movement with a seatbelt type harness is the first thing you can do. The second thing is a crate. So there are lots of different crate things on the internet. Again, you want one that's crash tested. Getting a crate or some sort of confinement that isn't crash tested and meant to handle that, not only isn't safe for them, but it's not safe for you either. And it could make an accident even worse. So yeah, I mean, you're restricting them, but it could be worse than just having them out in the open at that point in the event of a crash. No updates. Giving them a few more minutes. Wifey's texting me about Enzo updates. I'm gonna call him after this. It's been 2 hours, like right now, a few minutes ago. I'm giving them like another 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm gonna call him because I mean, it's an ER, they are busy. So the crate that I'm leaning towards trying, now I don't have a crate right now, full disclosure, you know, but the one I'm leaning towards is, I think it's called the Gunner Tactic or something. It's not cheap, mind you. Now, for a big dog, you know, they make smaller ones, which I'm sure are probably a little bit cheaper, but I think like the one that we would need is probably going to be like $700, $800, which I'm sure there's lots of you out there that are like, oh my gosh, like that's an insane amount of money. Again, you got to think about what you're buying here. And that is something that when you're in motion in a car, you know, these crates are meant to not only withstand like thousands of pounds of pressure, but they can be tethered down like properly with proper ties in the back. It does me no good to put him in a crate to help his anxiety if all I can do is have my own anxiety that, oh my gosh, if we're in a crash, he's gonna get killed in this thing. There's some crazy like videos and like photographs of like, these have been like in truck beds and gotten flipped over. I still don't quite understand the concept of putting them in your truck bed, even in this crate. So those are the two things that I would start with for as far as restricting movement. Now, I kind of mentioned this already, but weather. Make sure it's a good weather day. You know, even if your dog isn't afraid of storms or anything, like you don't want to be out there when it's windy or rainy or crazy stuff's going on, because they're just going to associate that with the car ride, and that's not good. You want the nice sunny day, the birds are chirping, you know, like let's not make this an uphill battle. Make it as simple as possible. Third thing is medication. We actually have a prescription for Lotus that we give him each day called Trazodone. You could talk to your vet about stuff like that. But there's a lot of natural things. One of the things we're testing right now is Rescue Remedy. Now, again, I'm not a vet. Rally is, but she's busy. She can't really be bothered right now. Rally, say hi. All right, I'll put you down. They don't like that. If you have any questions or concerns, you know, do your own research, consult your vet. This stuff is stuff you can just buy over the counter. I don't know that I would say I've noticed any difference yet, but we've only used it a couple times. We've used natural stuff in the past. The reason I started looking for a replacement is because they like stopped making the one for some reason that we were using. But I did notice like a little bit helpfulness with that at times. So that stuff can definitely be helpful, you know, and it doesn't hurt. The fourth thing is comfort. Yes, they may be tethered to a seatbelt or, you know, in a crate or something, but you still want to make it as comfortable as possible. So one of the things that we do and you can do is you could join them in the back seat. This is especially helpful if you're doing like the small test. You know, you could just hop in the back with them while you're sitting there in your driveway or whatever. If you've got a spouse or a friend or something, maybe have them drive and you sit in the back with them and just, you know, you don't have to sit there and coddle them or anything, but just be there next to them. Give them a little bit more comfort. Make them, you know, hey, it's not a big deal. You know, give them a few treats as you're going, as long as they're, you know, being good and everything. Alternatively, if you're by yourself, you could let them ride shotgun. Again, I would strongly suggest the seatbelt harness for no other reason other than the safety reasons. There's also the safety reason of if they start to panic and want to come to your lap while you're driving down the road. Not a good idea. That way, you know, it's easier to reach them, to pet them, maybe help them, maybe give them a treat here and there. It just makes things a little bit easier. And the third thing, as far as calming that I do sometimes, is I'll put calming music on. I do this for storms too, which if you've seen the storm video, I don't know which video is going to come first, but if you've seen that, I've got some calming music and stuff that I'll play, like classical. If you don't have anything specific, you can like get them on YouTube. I can link like one of the ones that I've been using lately, but really just any like generally classical music. You don't want to be like, you know, Metallica playing or something crazy. Like that's not going to help anxiety. And the last part, as far as short rides, is food. Make sure that, you know, it's okay to give them a treat, you know, a few small treats, like we're talking little training treats, but you don't want them to eat an hour before doing this. And honestly, I probably would wait like an hour afterwards at least. So, you know, do this when it's nowhere near a meal time. You don't want them getting sick. You don't want to be cleaning up throw up. And if it's like a shepherd or something, you know, there's always that risk of bloat and stomach flip and stuff. I just wouldn't chance that. And again, like I said, you don't want to be, at the very least, you don't want to be dealing if they throw up. So let's move on to road trips. So a lot of the stuff we just talked about holds true for the road trip, but there's some few tweaks that I would make for longer drives. We haven't done anything too crazy long with Lotus, but there are days where we go to parks that are like 45 minutes, an hour away. You might hit some traffic, might run some other errands in the meantime. So we could be gone for several hours. A lot of that is driving. So I do change things up a little bit. And if I was to go on a road trip tomorrow, I would do things a little bit differently. And these are some of the things that I do or would do for a road trip. With the road trip, we want to restrict movement. Now, like I said, for the longer drives, I would obviously still strap him in. But if we're going on like a legitimate road trip, like hours in the car, I would order that crate right now. We talked about weather. There's not a whole lot you can do weather on a road trip. I mean, if you're going on vacation or something, you know, it's kind of is what it is. The one thing I would say is bring some blankets, some weighted heavier blankets you could lay over the crate, maybe help filter out the noise a little bit. The calming music you could do. You could even maybe get a little Bluetooth speaker and put on the outside or inside their crate, as long as they're not like anxious and chew at it. You don't want to be giving them stuff to chew on. But one very huge caveat with that, if you're going to do the crate at all, you need to work on like an airflow solution, but especially if you're going to put a blanket over it. If you're doing the crate for like a little short drive and you've got the AC on in the car, it's probably fine. But for a longer drive, especially, and even more so if you're going to be putting blankets around them to kind of help insulate maybe a little bit more, you need some airflow. So one of the things I like is this cool little thing I'll put on the screen where you can actually attach it to your AC vent and like run it to it and attach it. That is phenomenal. I totally plan to get one of those if I get a crate, which I'm probably going to. The other option is they make like 12-volt fans. So like fans that can run off cigarette lighters, or some cars and SUVs nowadays, just like the FJ has just a household plug. So you get like a little fan or like a little PC fan. Now maybe your car has a vent that just happens to line up with it. Then if so, that's awesome. But if not, you know, get one of these attachments or get a fan or something, you know, keep the car cooler. Hopefully you got like dual zone if it's wintertime, because they're going to be hotter, especially if it's like a shepherd or something. You want airflow. You don't want them to overheat. And that's a big thing, especially if they're in there and they're a little anxious. They might be panting, which would create more heat. And while these crates do have vents for airflow and stuff, you certainly want to give them as much airflow as possible. All right, so the next part is comfort. Depending on where the crate's at, you may not be able to, but if you can sit next to them or somebody can sit next to them and near them, obviously that would be helpful. That may not be possible. You may have to like put it like in the back of the SUV or something. Water, this is where I might actually consider water. They make water bowls that are like more spill resistant and stuff. I'll try to find some and link below. If you're gonna be in the car for a couple hours at a time and they're panting a lot, you kind of gotta use your own judgment there, but I might give them like their own water. At least there, it's an option. At least they know it's there. If they want it, they probably won't drink it, but they might. And again, you know, with the music, if you don't want calming music playing through your whole car, maybe you get like a little Bluetooth speaker or something put there. Again, avoid like the loud Metallica type stuff. You want classical or specific calming music. I know for us, Lotus likes classical music that has like little bird chirps in it and stuff. I think it makes him just feel better, like it's a nice sunny day. Do your best to make them as comfortable as possible, obviously. All right, prior to leaving on a road trip, I mean, really this is for any trip, but especially a road trip, you might want to consider giving them medicine. If you've never used prescriptions, you know, I wouldn't necessarily suggest like, hey, if you're on a road trip tomorrow, call your vet and get a prescription, because you don't know how they're going to react to it. But if you know you're going on a road trip this summer, maybe you get a prescription right now where, you know, when it's particularly bad, give it to them when you're at home, see how they respond to it. Make sure that you're, you know, maybe give it to them a couple times, just make sure everything's kosher. And then that way, when you're on that road trip, if they're getting especially anxious, you can give them one and hopefully that'll help. If you don't want to go that route, that's fine. That's where I would look into the natural things. Same principle, I would want to test them ahead of time and see how they react, because you want to know if that's normal or not, essentially. And last but not least, avoid any other triggers if you can. Like Lotus is triggered by storms. Obviously, we can only do so much for that. But if we plan to stop for lunch at 2 p.m. and it is in the middle of a thunderstorm, you can bet I'm not stopping for lunch right then. I'm just not going to do it. Like, we're just going to push on until we get out of this storm. Then we'll stop for lunch, because getting him out in the middle of a storm is not going to do anybody any good. Plus, I just don't want to have wet dogs. But like other dogs, you know, if you pull into a rest stop and this is just like, I don't know, the puppy parade's there and there's like 30 other people there with their dogs and Lotus has reacted to dogs and it's like, yeah, maybe we'll go to the next rest stop or something. A few miles down the road, whatever, not a big deal. You can't always do that, but just be mindful of that. Let's not make things any worse than we have to make them. If we were at a rest stop and another dog showed up, Lotus triggered and was acting all reactive and shaking because of that, well, you know, once that dog's gone, you know, we walk around, we relax a little, we get calm, then we get back in the car. Let's not be all anxious already when we get in the car. Like, that's just setting us up for failure, you know? So just be mindful of that stuff. I hope you guys got some usefulness out of this video. If you've got a dog that's dealing with this, trust me, I fully sympathize with you. If you have any questions, you can leave them below. I'd be happy to answer as best I can. By now, I should have updates on Enzo. I think that video will probably be up before this one. All the names you see scrolling right now, those are all the Patreons. Those are all the people that donate to us, to our family, each and every month, that support us. I thank you all so much. I thank everybody who's watching this video, likes and subscribes our videos. Without all of you watching, I don't even know what the point of this would be. So it would just be me and the pups going to the park every day like usual, I guess, but without a camera. Anyways, later guys.